And now we come to an episode that is properly weird. Let's get to it, shall we?
You should see me in a tank top.
Are you coffee?
The Outer Limits.
We start with an old man running away from a giant brain. Wow, okay, so this episode doesn't mess around. The old man stumbles and is found by a drifter who looks like the love child of James Marsden and Richard Madden. The drifter goes looking for help in the woods, because that makes more sense than using his car, just as the giant brain morphs into a mansion and the old man falls victim to Thanos. On his way to the mansion, the drifter finds a combination pocket watch and locket with a picture of a beautiful young woman in it, and he decides to hold on to it. I get it. I'm also a fan of adventure games and keep every random thing I find in my travels, because you never know when it will come in handy to help solve an esoteric puzzle down the line. And it pays off for the drifter, too. After he lets himself into the mansion, he finds the woman from the picture asleep in a lounge chair. She runs away as soon as he wakes her, though, and he chases her until he gets to the oddly placed Samuel Beckett theater set, which he wisely doesn't want any part of. He then returns to the lounge, where he meets a trio of characters who are more concerned with the finer details of the drifter's story than they are the urgency with which he wants to help the old man he left by the side of the road.
I don't understand you people. There's an old man lying in the road.
The three tenants, the married couple Randall and Ethel and the former movie starlet Florinda, all act like residents of Twin Peaks or Silent Hill, behaving bizarrely and not being terribly forthcoming with answers.
He didn't see an old man at all.
Rubbish, 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 rubbish.
The young woman, Tess, comes back and acts almost normal, remarking on the drifter's compassion before scurrying off again. Having had enough of this lunatic asylum, the drifter tries to escape, only to discover that he is being tractor-beamed to the upper floor.
He looks perfectly pitiful. I think it's just awful. Awful, awful, awful.
And that's when things get weird. Up in the dark chamber of the upper floor, the drifter meets a giant ball of snot that wants to speak about equations and the meaning of life as it relates to the fate of humanity, all with a handy PowerPoint demonstration. The drifter resists the snot monster's probing and is eventually released back into the mansion to spend more time with the crazies.
Have I lost my mind?
You've lost it, Drifter.
After only a few minutes with him, though, he tries running away again, this time discovering that the front door and all the windows have mysteriously vanished. Ethel tries to relax him with music, and eventually the drifter is left alone with Tess. His first priority is making sure she's legal.
Can't be much more than 18 now.
I'm not.
He then tries to get her to tell him what's happening, but she doesn't know how. Frustrated, the drifter finally goes to the Beckett stage, where even the cinematographer goes nuts. Tess follows a few paces behind, but when the drifter finally makes his way back to the lounge, he accuses her of being the snot monster. This makes her cry, which makes him apologize with a kiss before finally saying his name, Wade Norton. Tess then drops the bombshell that she knows how to leave and takes him to a door. On the other side is a graveyard, which is totally not symbolic, at the edge of which is a gate to the outside world. She urges him to go, but explains that she can't go with him. But unfortunately, they are now madly in love, because that's how romance works, and he refuses to leave without her. Later, the snot monster tries to probe Wade further, but all he does is make things trippier.
Oblivion.
Oblivion.
Back in the lounge, an increasingly frustrated Wade tries in vain to get more answers, but the crazies only act even crazier.
I had to do that. Blame it on my madcap heart.
Wade meets up with Tess in the graveyard again and finally figures out the truth, that the occupants of the mansion have been there for decades, if not longer, unaging, but if they leave, The years will catch up to them and they will die of old age, just like the old man, who he learns was Tess's father. When Wade refuses to leave because he doesn't want to be separated from her, Tess sacrifices herself by stepping through the gate and getting dusted. That's when the snot monster figures out the variable missing from his equation, love, and lets Wade go. The snot monster then transforms the house back into a giant brain, with the crazies left screaming in the dark. And Wade wanders off with a pocket watch. So yeah, that was something. In all seriousness, I love this episode, and had to watch it more than once. I am a fan of weird, unsettling stories, and this episode clearly matches that description. It has its own internal logic, and there are more than enough hints peppered throughout the episode to make sense of what the rules are and what's going on.
You wouldn't admire me if I were playing with an atom bomb. You'd be afraid of me.
An atom bomb?
When the reveal comes in the last couple of scenes, it feels earned without necessarily insulting the intelligence of the viewer. This is a good companion piece to the previous episode, The Mutant, because both episodes are going for a similar tone and style, but this one succeeds in every way that the previous one fails. Sure, the thumping sound effect gets painfully repetitive, and the necessary romantic subplot moves at Formula One speed, but for a TV show in the mid-1960s, this is incredibly bold and ahead of its time. And that's all I have on the guests. Now, as always, do all those YouTubey things, check out my Patreon, and all that other good YouTubey stuff. But until next time, this is the Unapologetic Geek telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
You come to look forward to those sessions, as my analyst used to wish I'd looked forward to mine.